Hey, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Thriving Thoughts. I'm your host, Dr. Sherry. Today, I have my friends, Tammi McCarthy and Lisa Martinez on the show to talk about how iron sharpens iron. That's actually from the book of Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 17, to be exact. It says, as iron sharpens iron, meaning it's getting sharper and better at what it does, so a friend sharpens a friend. This is the episode for you if you are wondering, how can I be in a meaningful friendship, a ride or die friendship where I'm actually sharper, better, faster, stronger because of it? Before we join the conversation, I'd like to remind you that you can enter to win a personally signed copy shipped to you from me of my book, Breakup Breakthroughs, right there on the shelf back there, for those of you watching. All you need to do is listen to this episode, share your favorite takeaway on your Instagram story, tag me at dr.sherryspeaks, and use the hashtag Thriving Thoughts with Dr. Sherry. Help me spread the word to more women who need to hear these incredible, candid, and raw conversations between friends so that they too can learn that it's possible to thrive in friendship. Two of my favorite takeaways. One is when Lisa was describing a story of how Lisa and Tammi had reconnected later on in life. And she said, our hearts just knew each other. And then when Tammi talked about reciprocity and how in this friendship, in this particular ride or die friendship, she's never felt like she hasn't gotten what she's given. And I know a lot of times people can feel like that in friendship, right? So please lean in to this conversation to learn more about how Tammi and Lisa sharpen one another.
My mom, who's in her 70s, she lives in the DC area, and they have all that cicadas, the cicada problem. So she calls me the other day and she says, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. So I'm driving in the car and I feel a cicada crawling up my back.
No.
Yeah, as she's driving. So she says, I lean forward, because I don't want to crunch it between my back and the seat, So she says, then I pull over into this strip mall. She says, it's 9:00 at night. There weren't too many people out. I'm thinking 9:00 at night, a lot of people are out, She pulls over and she says she slams the car in park. She rips her shirt off.
What?
This is my 70-year-old mother. She rips her shirt, probably wearing like a Madonna bra. You know what I mean? Like she's 70.
Right. Yeah.
And she's flailing the shirt in the air, trying to get the cicada gone.
Like outside of the car?
Right. Oh, yeah. Completely outside of the car. Not even in like a legitimate parking spot. Like just like pull over, put it into park. And she's telling me this story and my eyes are like, I can't even imagine seeing this, like driving by and seeing a woman in her 70s in her bra outside, My 9-year-old, I'm like recounting the story to my kids and my 9-year-old goes, does grandma have no shame?
Your 9-year-old, that's funny.
Come on.
No, not when it comes to cicadas.
Apparently she doesn't care.
Jeez, there's a bug. Forget it.
I mean, those things are like...
Oh, no, they're massive.
Yeah, they're
so
legit.
I don't hear them here. Do you guys hear them where you are?
Yes.
You do?
No, I don't hear them at all.
Yeah.
We haven't had any real big issues with them here.
Yeah. I think they're up in the mountains, but they're not down here in the development. I drove to Virginia Saturday to see a client. And as soon as I got out of the car, I was like, what is that sound? Because it was the first time I heard it.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
gosh.
loud.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So do you have any fun bug or dog stories, Lisa?
Fun bug or dog? I'm drawing a blank right now. I mean,
or you could just move to the embarrassing component of my story.
Oh, the embarrassing? Like,
do you have any embarrassing moments to share?
Oh gosh. I mean,
live on the air,
Live on the air. There was one. Okay. So we're going to bring it back to, Tammi and me. Right. So I remember I was supposed to meet Tammi. Okay. Cause we met at University, right? And we had made it. I don't even know if you remember the story, Tammy, because you ended up not being there.
Okay.
But I was supposed to meet her on campus. Our Franciscan University had this little chapel. It's called the Portiuncle. We called it the Port. So I'm supposed to meet Tammy by the Port at a certain time. But we had gone off campus, a group of us, to go to church. And when we came back, the cafeteria was closed, and that's where we eat. So it was a group that was going to go to a place called Eaton Park off campus, and I didn't have a car. So it's like, when they go, you got to go.
Yeah. And
so I was supposed to meet her, and I tried to call, but I couldn't leave a message for whatever, because, we had answering machines back then in the 90s. And so I was like, you know what, let me just go to the port, and I'm going to leave a note for her on the bench there that we're supposed to meet at, to say that I had to go to lunch and I'll meet you later. So anyways, our campus is very hilly, and I was wearing this like one-piece jumper, and back in the 90s, I was like this, had really flowy pants on the bottom. Yeah. And a friend of mine had borrowed this jumper, and she's like, don't run in this, when she gave it back to me. And I was like, why? And she said, because your legs get caught up in the flowy pants. And she's like, I wiped it out. No, I was like, okay. So I put it back in my closet. Well, I was wearing that dress that day. I was going to meet Tammy. Don't run in this dress. It was like there's a big hill next to the cafeteria when you're going down to get to the port. And so I naturally started to pick up speed. And so I started to jog. Naturally. And so my leg got caught in the pant, and I went full Superman. I mean, arms out, hit the pavement, and skid to a stop on a downhill slope with a car passing by me at that moment. And I think they were all like, why did you run in the dress? And I was like, I forgot. And as I'm laying on the ground, there's two guys that I knew were across the street. They run over, and, they helped me get up. And this was one of those things that you could not gracefully recover from.
No.
I had hit so many parts of my body on this full body slide. So as I'm getting up, my brain is trying to register, what has anything come off of me? Has anything detached? Everything hurts right now, but what hurts the most? And it was this part of my arm. So I looked, and like everything had been scraped by my on my forearm. And so I'm looking down at it, and they're looking at me like, this is bad. Are you okay? And I was like, no. They said, you should really go get cleaned up. And I'm like, yeah. And then I looked down, and the fall had ripped the buttons off my dress. So I was exposed. And I
my goodness.
Quickly covered up my chest. And I was like, I gotta go.
I think fall does not quite describe that.
Seriously.
So much as like catastrophic slide or something.
That is a good one. But I mean, it wasn't like I was playing softball like I did in high school. I was going in for, home base. I was just trying to leave a note for Tammy.
I had to leave a note. So that now, Tammy, did you hear this story immediately?
I feel like this is the first time I've heard this story.
Probably. Yeah, that's so crazy. I mean, it was so bad. And then we went afterwards, and I remember one of my friends was sitting next to me at the meal, and he just kept, every time he'd look over me, go, ah.
Right. You were the trigger for that memory.
Look at you. Yeah.
What's so funny about the difference between back then and back now is like, if I went in the port and I waited for a few minutes and she wasn't there, I would have just assumed something happened. I would have just, maybe gone by her dorm later or given her a call. But if you text somebody and you don't respond back right away, I mean, people act like, are you alive? Are you okay?
Kidnapped? Yeah.
And I just think about how many times I would go days without talking to anybody.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, instant access creates urgency that's unnecessary.
Truth.
Yeah. And anxiety that's not necessary.
Yeah. As an aside, really quickly, when call waiting came out, when that was a thing.
Yeah.
Right. And you click the little thing and click over. My mom refused to get it because she said it was rude. She said, you are prioritizing the person that you're talking to. And if you click over, then that's you're not important to me.
That is truth.
I agree with that.
But now we're in a restaurant sitting across from each other, ignoring each other. Like,
Right.
I mean, I'm not, but you know what I'm saying. I say we.
Yeah.
The collective we. And anyway, so you guys have known each other for how many years then?
Gosh, 95, since 1995. I mean, that's when we started university.
Not 95 years. But, you know, you're like, she's like, how many years? You're like, 95. I was like, where are we going with this?
Right. 95 years.
Where are we going?
See, this is where you need that other part of your brain that's in the other person to be like, sound like a tool right now.
So, okay, that's going to make me lead to my just my first question is, you know, what made you guys stick?
Oh my gosh. Can't you tell? We just like laugh all the time with each other.
Yeah, but it's got to be more than laughter. I mean, you guys are, so Tammi, you're in Pennsylvania. Lisa, you're in Texas.
Mm-hmm. I am.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, there's certain friends I believe that you're drawn to, that you have, like, you know, you just have a fast friendship that you know, just feel comfortable with. You know, we both have a sarcastic side to us. We both have a sense of humor. We're more extroverted. So we're similar in those aspects of our personality, I would say. Mm-hmm. But spiritually, I think that's really the glue that has kept us, you know, all of these years. And the funny thing about it is, you know, we were friends throughout university, so the 4 years there. But she got married a couple years after, you know, she met Dan in college, you know. Yeah. And I didn't meet my husband until my 30s. And so I was on, you know, I moved back to Michigan. What, you went to Pennsylvania?
Yeah. I was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And so we both led separate lives then and didn't connect except through Facebook until a couple of years ago when we got involved in ministry again. So I think the beauty of it is, you know, one of those spiritual sisterhoods that you have where it could be years that go by. Mm-hmm. She has, you know, children. She's a homeschool mom. I have been, you know, dealing with infertility for the 10 years of our marriage. And so, you know, and it wasn't like there any time had passed when we kind of reconnected again. It was like, we pick right back up, fall into those deep conversations, but laughing our butts off. So
what caused the reconnection?
Oh, that's a really neat story. Well, I think I would go back for a second because I do think that nowadays women talk about how hard it is to connect with other women. And I would say I lived outside of DC growing up. I went to an all-girls school. And I really struggled with the cattiness of women. Mm-hmm. And so what I noticed when I met Lisa is she had a lot of guy friends. Mm-hmm. And that was a big thing for me because I had a lot of guy friends. Yeah. Because guys just kind of say it like it is. And there wasn't this, like I said, cattiness. So when we had a mutual guy friend, and when her and I would start talking, like, she's so easy to talk to. And I know where I stand with her. We can just have conversations and there's not, did she mean this by this? You know, I don't know when she looked at me like that. I wasn't sure. It just wasn't like that. It was just
there was genuineness,
very
not
authentic.
Appearances or
very authentic. And I never got the inclination that Lisa was ever judging me, was ever intimidated by me or in any way made me feel anything other than kind of delighted in when we were together.
Yeah.
And then her and I actually did ministry work. We kind of didn't really know that we were both signing up for the same ministry work and had done some work in prayer together. And that just takes it to a whole nother level. Like when you have that intimacy in prayer with someone and you're kind of aligning your hearts with theirs and you're praying with people and your friendship goes beyond this, you know, sarcastic humor to, wow, I'm letting you into a deeper place because of what we're doing, because of ministry work. I think that's kind of foundational, you know, being in your late teens, early 20s, to have that kind of impact with another woman. It just lasts. It's something that you pick back up on because you're like, you were there when I was really coming into adulthood. And you were the kind of friend that kind of sheltered me through a lot of hardships. You know, we had a lot of trauma together. We kind of grieve with things together. And And I think that that's when Lisa's talking about you kind of pick back up. It's because you're like, oh, hey, friend.
Yeah.
You know, it's
There
just
you
like,
are.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There you are. I love you. Yeah.
Yeah. Your hearts know each other.
Yeah.
And so even though you've been on these different legs of the journey, the heart just is like, you know, it has that memory of your friend. And it's like that dearness that, you know, drew us together, and the spirit that really bonded us, that authenticity, just continued to gel, and it grew. And so, when I reached out to Tammi again was after a period of discernment, after I'd been a caretaker for my dad in his final days, and then took some time after he passed away in 2019 to really like discern, you know, God's will for my life. And so I was allowing myself time to grieve and to figure out what was next. And he really laid this ministry on my heart because of the restoration that he was doing in me. And he gave me a, you know, kind of a list of names, and Tammy's was one of them.
Tammi was on it.
Yes. And was like, these ladies, like, I want you to reach out to or ask for prayer or whatever. And so I took a time, you know, to discern it and kind of start working in the background on the logo with a friend of mine who is our art director, and just started putting the pieces together. And I reached out to my niece first, and she gave a yes. And I could say that there was some woundedness in me to collaborating with women again because of some previous experiences.
Okay.
And so there was a bit of like gun shy, I think, in, you know, reaching out and being vulnerable in that way to say, I don't know exactly what this is all going to be, but I know that God wants us to use stories and use media to be able to share our hearts and try to accompany people through their own healing and their own restoration. And I knew that Tammi blogged and had been following along on her blog and keeping up with her via Facebook and Instagram. And so it was kind of like this, I think I started with like an Instagram DM or something, was like, can we talk? And, you know, reached out.
Yeah.
And then I'll turn it over to her because I love her response of when I reached out. And there was, you know, kind of this nervousness, like I said, of like, I was kind of didn't know how I'm going to ask her. And I'm feeling vulnerable, but I'm loving catching up with her. I think we probably talked for 2 hours that first time. But
well, I think the other thing is that we would tag each other in photos that came up. You know, we would, Facebook kind of allows you to kind of have a sneak peek into someone else's life, so you can see kind of what they're about, but to go into an intimacy level that we hadn't talked. We hadn't really had a conversation where it was like, hey friend, where have you been? What are you doing? What's going on? And, so what was happening with me was at the same time, I had kind of had this, like epiphany moment in my prayer time. And the Lord had kind of said to me, hey, you know what? You have never made an earnest effort to kind of draw souls back to me. Like you've always been a woman of faith. You've always have served, but you've never kind of, and the words that were given to me were, you've never invited other people to sit at my banquet table. And I was like, well, Lord, like, what does this mean? You know, like, what are you asking me to do?
Right.
And so over the next few months, I felt like I was being prepared for something, but I didn't know what it was. But Lisa and I, we kind of use this phase. We talk in the spirit. Yeah. And that was something that we had done in college. So we very could quickly explain to each other that we felt led to do something. And it was just like, there was no questions of what we were saying. It was sort of like, well, I feel led here. And then, especially when we were praying with people, because I think this is kind of important. When we were praying with people, we would kind of be like, I would say, I kind of feel this. And she would say, I confirm that. So we always were working with each other like that. So when she texted me, and it was a Facebook instant message, and she said, hey girl, it's been forever. Can I have your cell? Can we talk? And I said, sure. And so meanwhile, you know, I'm thinking this will be so cool. I can explain to her how I've had this like big epiphany moment and, you know, all this stuff's going on in my life. And it was actually when my cell phone was ringing and I had programmed her number in, and my phone's ringing and I'm about to click it. And like the Lord said to me, say yes to whatever she asks you.
Wow.
And so we were joking about it later. I was like, I didn't know if I was going to become a Beachbody coach. Was I selling essential oils?
Right.
What was I doing?
What am I saying yes
What am I saying yes to? But like the beautiful part about it, and this is what I'd say when we were talking about like speaking in the spirit, was the next line from me, like from the Lord, was, and tell her before she talks. Like before she has the opportunity to say something to me.
even ask you.
Yes. I was to kind of come in powerfully and be like, hey, listen, I just want to stop you. Like the Lord said, I'm supposed to tell you yes to whatever you're asking me.
Right.
Wow.
And then the freedom that it gave me then, right? Because I'm like,
so then now you got a blank check, right? Like, okay, how about this?
Exactly. Will you move in with me?
Right.
Well, but it was really funny because you could just hear her sigh of relief.
Oh,
like she was like, oh, girl.
So let's extract something from this, because there's a thread here that I want to talk about. So a lot of people don't know some of the terminology that you're using.
Okay.
And I think that's important for us to share that, because the only way that we can reach people with our hearts is to explain it in a language that other people can understand. And so a couple of things. One, you have the spiritual bond, right?
Sure.
But, and from my perspective as a woman of faith, you first delight yourself in the Lord, and therefore then you can delight yourself in one another and have that bond with that thread. So the first question is, do you have other friendships like this one that are not bound by that delight in the Lord?
Good question. I mean, I do have friendships that have stood, I would say, the test of time, and they've gone back, because we've shared maybe our childhood together. We've, have many memories. We grew up. But I think it's different in that fact where, okay, we have so much shared memories. We have, we pick back up. But there is something different when you have a spiritual bond with somebody, because that's an aspect, right? We're made of flesh. We're made of spirit. We're made of, our psyche. And when you connect with someone on all those levels, when we have mentally bonded through trauma and, grief in our life, we have spiritually bonded through prayer. We have psychologically bonded and all of those things. I think it's a very deep, abiding friendship. And there's a scripture that comes to mind when I think of Tammi, and it's in Proverbs 27, where it says, iron sharpens iron, as a man or another person does for one. And I think that she is someone who sharpens me, know? And so in that, there becomes a kind of abiding that happens with this kind of friend that doesn't naturally occur in all friendships, even though they may be old friends, good friends, dear friends, that there is something that happens with a spiritual bond when you're oriented in the same way, and that it just comes into a place in your soul that's like, this refreshes me. This strengthens me. This makes me a better person. And I think
I love that word refreshes, because, going back to what you said, Tammi, about women, I think mostly probably in our earlier formative young adulthood years, struggle to have these authentic, abiding relationships with other women, because there's a lot of stuff in our flesh that gets in the way, right?
And competition and
and all of that. But that it is much of the same, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting, and it's the opposite of refreshing, right? And so I think that I think you're right. In my experience too, Lisa, that with friendship, my friendships that are with other women who are believers, who are women of faith, that I can take spiritual or, relational concern to, that I can't take to other people who don't have that same bond, there is something deeper. There is something more abiding about that, because that's, there's an eternal connection right? As opposed to just the temporal connection. So let's talk about this a little bit, the refreshing, because the refreshing doesn't come without what you were saying, Lisa, the ironing, sharpening iron, sharpening iron.
Yeah.
How do you guys do that for one another?
Oh man. I think it's a lot of things. Right now, doing ministry work together, sometimes Lisa will call me about a situation and she'll say, this is how I see this, and sometimes it's, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I heard. I'm fully behind you. And sometimes it will be, I don't know. Because here's the thing. I've been in that situation before, and I can be like that. Yeah. And I can be like this, and I can see where that person's coming from. So I think it's authentic friendships. People allow you to kind of unload. Yeah. And then they kind of give you back what you need. You know what I mean? That.
You're not going to leave it all on my doorstep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let you take back these burdens that you don't need.
Yeah.
But girlfriend, some of this is trash. Yeah. And let's get rid of it. Let's unpack it. Let's be done with it. But then also, I'm not going to sit here and hear you maybe have things with your husband, or there's things with your mom, or you're sharing something with me. And I think that maybe your perspective needs a little fine tuning, then I'm like, hey, listen, as your friend, I can't just sit here and let you tell me all this without kind of coming back to you and saying, I think you're kind of being hard on that person, or I've been in that situation. And I think that's what she means. I think that's what she means by iron sharpening iron. And Lisa, I love her to death. She is not like me in the fact that she's more type A and she's very linear. And I, in some ways, can be this wild stallion that I'm like, what do you mean deadlines? Like, let's just love everybody and let's talk about things and let's
just love everyone,
and let's just whenever I get my blog post done, I do, and
but that makes the best combination, right?
Yes. But that's where she sharpens me, because she's like, right, Tammy, listen, I'm all for your spontaneity. I'm all for your adaptability. You're great about that. But listen, people still need to hear what you have to say. You need to produce this. You need to produce this. And girlfriend, you have till Thursday, or, and so that's why I mean, iron sharpening's iron is being able to kind of be there for each other and recognize each other's weaknesses and not kind of bash each other, but try to strengthen those and try to highlight your girlfriend's strengths.
Accountability. It's accountability to be who you see the other person to be. When I think of this parallel, and I'm so thankful to the Lord for giving that imagery to me right now. But this parallel of righteousness, righteousness is to be as one ought to be as one was designed to. And so that's how God sees us, right? As righteous, as we are supposed to be. And so in friendship, that parallel is seeing one another as you ought to be and reminding you of that in those moments.
Yeah. It's harken you back to yourself. And we, one of the things we're talking about, because we're working on, have you heard of the Clifton Strengths Finder? Yeah. So we're doing that and preparing for a retreat for our team.
Okay.
And
you'll have to share your top 5 with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can guess. Wait, just don't tell me until the end of the show. I'm going to see if I can guess.
She's like, don't say it yet. Yeah. So we're sharing, the Strengths Finder results with one another and the whole thing. And basically, one of the beauties is we've kind of done this analysis to say what are within our team, the strengths, the weaknesses, our opportunities, threats. It's called SWOT analysis. And kind of going through all of these things where you identify, okay, these are our weaknesses, these are our strengths. And when that other person knows and has this information about you, and they don't use it as a weapon, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They don't use it to say, you know what, you are slacking, or you are, make you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
But they kind of like call you into those things. And they really, I mean, the way that we described it was like, you know, just that person helps you to be a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, they call you into that strength. I see your potential in these areas. I know what you're capable of. And so you just feel strengthened. And that's where the refreshment comes, right? Is that that's such an honest, authentic, loving relationship. And it's so refreshing to my soul, because other people may take from me because they have needs, or they see something, you know, you minister, you this or that. I'm looking to you for wisdom. I'm looking to you for something, have a need fulfilled in some way. The beauty of our relationship is there's a reciprocity. You know, I get as much or more as I give, you know, from the relationship. Yeah. And so it's this relationship.
How do you know that?
Oh, wow.
How do you identify that? And just maybe if you can provide a practical example, because there's a lot of people, women in particular, that don't know how to measure that. They're not really sure what the barometer of that is. So what's that for you? And I know it's a little bit different for everybody, but what is that for you? Is it an intuition? Is it a feeling? Is it a peace? What is it?
Yeah, I would say, you know, there's a peace that comes, right? You know, in the when there's a conversation, and we often, every time we meet, and we meet at least once a week, we start with prayer. And so there's just like she said, there's a way to come into a space with each other where we can like lay our burdens down. And when that other person can like look at all those burdens with you and kind of know you enough to say, you know, that's really something you don't need to be carrying, sister. Or, you know, so I think it's the way that I know it is that I feel a peace, and I feel refueled in a way that I've come away from an interaction with her knowing something better. I feel like God has shown me, revealed something to me, whether it's just that we've laughed and I've got joy again in my heart, or whether we took the opportunity to cry, you know, which we've done, you know, several times. Yeah. And it would be, you know, like our conversation yesterday, you know, where you can go through and say, she knows that because I'm type A, I'm going to want to feel that I've crossed a couple things off my list in that conversation. Right. So she's like, you know, we talk about team being and team doing in our group because of some of the practices we do. I'm like team doing, and she's team being. Yeah. And so there's like this great, like you said, it's kind of like that opposites attract. And sometimes you can drive each other crazy because she might be like, you're so task oriented, man. Why don't you just chill? And I could be the other way. But there comes a leveling out. And when you walk away from that, you said, well, I got something out of the conversation where I needed that. And then I hope she got the same, where she felt like I was more present to her, that I really listened to her, that I met her where she was at. And if she needed some guidance and direction, I provided that as well.
And that's it. That's how you know if you can leave an interaction or an experience with a friend feeling refreshed.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes like beyond that too, to, I was listening to this quote the other day, and they were talking about how one of the best ways that we can love someone is to listen, to understand. Yeah. Not to listen to reply. You know, and I think that when Lisa and I talk, you know, like she was saying, we start our talks in prayer, but we oftentimes go into our previous conversations. Hey, how did that end up? You know, or listen, I saw where you like posted this on Instagram. I was dying laughing. What was that about? You know, we kind of, there's enough for us to kind of sustain. Yeah. But the other beautiful part about our relationship is Lisa and I have this inside joke that the past 6 months have been so absolutely crazy for us. And we just feel like we're on this crazy journey. So I was telling her about this gift that I had seen, and it reminded me so much of our conversations. And it was this pig. And the pig was like, had this pinwheel out the window, and it was like, whee! Right. And it was, you could just see like the pure joy in this pig's face as this pinwheel went around. Yeah. And I said, Lisa, I think we have to focus on that. Like as crazy as our life is, we just kind of have to like, with the Lord, we just have to be like, wherever
Find
you're
the
taking
moments
us.
of joy. Yeah.
Like wherever you're taking us. So, we'll text or she'll send me something like, hey, pray for this. And I'll hit that gift. I'm like, and we just kind of will go back and forth with gifts for a little bit, where we're just like, hey, just a reminder of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yep.
And kind of, I think, encouraging each other in a very simple, off the cuff, friendly way. But then there's been times when Elisa and I FaceTime for our talks. There's been times when she'll
love that. That's
she'll take one look
wisdom.
at my face and she'll be like, what's going on, friend?
Yeah.
And I'll just burst into tears.
Yeah.
So, and like she said, that's the reciprocity. It's like there's times when we're on the call and she's just, she has to get this done, this done, this done. And then she kind of breathes a sigh of relief. And then I'm like, and what else? And then she's unburdened something else that's on her heart, or for me, I'm very emotion led. So for me, sometimes it's just all over my face.
Yeah.
But the other thing about reciprocity is, recently I'd been talking to Lisa about COVID. And my husband has severe lung issues. And so this was a big concern. It's been a concern for us. We've been told any pneumonia could take his life. He's 50. And so every winter is tough for us. Every flu season is tough. When COVID came through, there was sort of this, oh no, you are the perfect candidate for this to be a huge issue. So Lisa knew that was always in the back of the prayer intentions, was kind of pray protection over my family. Well, so COVID came through our house in the middle of May. And
just recently.
Yes, just recently. And she called me up and she was like, sister, what can I do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm mom. I'm positive, but I'm mom. So I can't be sick. And I have some downstairs who aren't. And my husband's isolated upstairs. And I'm like serving some who are in quarantine. I'm just like, when? I don't know. And then like this delivery from Costco came on my porch and it was Lisa and she got it. Like she got that I needed the kids to self-serve. So it was mac and cheese and, everything kids can throw in the microwave and quick pastas. And the cutest part was one of my girls picks up this big box of Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches, which like Lisa doesn't know is like coveted item in my house.
Oh my goodness.
And it was a Costco version. So it's like 18 count, and I have 5 children and they do the math all the time. And they're like, well,
like gone in 2 days.
Yeah. It's, So my daughter picks this up like it's the Holy Grail, and she was like, how did she know?
That's just the icing on the cake.
Right?
I kind of like laughed. I was like, guys, it's just Miss Lisa. It's what she does. It was just, it was one of those, I think that her and I both have a lot of these moments when we're like, how did you know? It's just that connection. I feel like it's a connection of the Holy Spirit. I feel like it's that prompting that's like, you should call. It's the prompting that her and I were on the phone one day. And I said to her, like, how can I unburden you? Like, you seem so burdened. Like, how can I unburden you? What can I physically do? And I think sometimes just being asked that by somebody who cares about you. And like you said, I'm outside of Philly and she's in Texas. So we're not physically close. But the beautiful thing about this retreat that we're throwing is I said to her, I cannot wait to put my arms around you. I mean, it has been so long. It's
over
been
20 years.
The last time?
20 years.
You guys haven't seen one another in person for 20 years.
No.
Wow. You're not going to know what to do with the half below the shoulders. It'd
be like Snoopy legs, Be like, where is that woman going? Yeah. No, absolutely.
So tell us. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say to that point that she said, when her daughter said, how did she know? How did she know about the breakfast sandwich? I just said, it's the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Yeah. It's the Holy Spirit. I'm stood there. I'm like, what needs to be done for this woman? Because she is so overwhelmed. She cannot identify it. And, I just said, if the kids could be fed, whatever, because if I send over a meal or whatever, so I get on the horn with the rest of our team within, a couple hours, all the money is PayPal'd, the Costco order has been delivered. And then we know, our ministry is little with great love. Well, that was a little thing with great love.
Yeah.
They just needed food for a few days so that mom could just rest and try to recoup, and that she didn't have to think about, oh, how do I get groceries and how do I get all these mouths fed right now?
Yeah.
So
I love how that story is an example of bearing one another's burdens.
yeah.
When I think about that, I think of bearing one another's burdens when you're in this type of deep, abiding relationship that you guys are in. What the other person goes through, you feel like.
Yes.
So it's
Sure.
a lot of times people will say things like, you need to just get outside of yourself to help somebody else. But I think we have to get inside of ourselves. Like, what would I be feeling in this situation? So, how can I relieve her of this? What would I want if so I think that's a beautiful example. And I love the little icing on the cake or the, biscuit on the egg of the Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches.
Well, I think something that's also like really beautiful about friendships, and this is something that Lisa and I have talked a lot about this, about trying to create just a different version of women today, like just wanting women to feel like they, I don't want to use the word empowered because I struggle with that word. I think I just want this sisterhood. I want women to feel loved and respected and appreciated. And so one of the things that, Lisa and I love to do is to connect our friends with each other, And so I have a good friend here in Philly that I said to Lisa, oh my gosh, you would love this girl. Like, she speaks in the spirit. I mean, she's so funny and she's so flippant. And, I think when you have that, when you have this holy sisterhood, when you have these women that speak life over you, it's much like the scripture verse that talks about like not hiding your light under a bushel basket. It's like when you have these women that just speak life, you want to get them next to a mic. You want to get them following on Instagram. You want them to meet in person. You just want other women to feel what you experience. And to feel that fullness of yourself. So I think with Lisa, like that's one of the reasons why we have, we like sometimes going live. We like people to watch the way that we interact with each other, because I think that as funny as Lisa and I are with each other, and people are drawn to that, like the authenticity that we have, there's a depth there. There's, like you said, there's a deep care for each other. There's a deep care even for like each other's marriages. Like I've never met Mike. I've never met her husband, but I said to her, I'm actually flying to her, and then her and I are going to the retreat.
Okay.
And
wait, when is this happening?
In July.
In a month.
Oh,
yeah. But I said, I can't wait to meet Mike. Like, I can't wait to meet this person who has captured your heart. Like I can't wait to see what he's all about. And I think that's the part, like you were talking about, that's the part of like loving the person, is that you want to see what their life looks like. Yeah. You want to see them plucked into their everyday and,
Yeah. No, that's good. So you guys have mentioned ministry a couple of times.
Yeah.
What is your ministry? Tell us about that. What are you doing?
Yeah. So Little with Great Love. We launched in January 2020, and it really is just, it's a website, littlewithgreatlove.com, where we share stories. And so we use media to use the power of story to connect with others, to try to bring them into restoration through Christ. So there's a group of us. There's about 8 of us ladies that have been contributors, and we've used video, podcast, and so like a perfect example of drawing from this friendship. So I'm the founder, and Tammi is contributor, speaker, and spiritual mom of the group. So like we're all her little chicks, and stuff, and she's the spiritual mama hen, and her and I were just having our weekly, right, back in January of this year. And in this conversation, like we've got to put on, so we are a Christian ministry, so all are welcome, but all of we're Catholic as well, And so Lent was coming up, and we need to do something for Lent. There's 40 days. This is significant in our liturgical calendar of the year. What are we going to do? And so I had been soliciting, ideas from all the different ladies and really kind of taking it to prayer. But her and I are just having our weekly, we sit down, for our Tuesday FaceTime, and we're talking about the saints, and we're talking about how, they inspire us. And she really wished that there was kind of like a Cliff Notes version on the lives of the saints, like Saints for Slackers. And I was like, that's it. Wait, hold on. the inspiration.
Say that again. Say that again.
Right.
Saints for Slackers.
Yeah. So we ended up doing our first podcast, which reached over 20 countries, over 2,000 downloads. And we did 40 plus podcasts. And we got 18 different people outside of our ministry to collaborate with us. And we had Redbird Ministries, a grief ministry that's a nonprofit that deals with child loss. You've interviewed Kelly Bro, the founder, to be co-sponsor with us. And, we did T-shirts and we did all kinds of things. But what was beautiful was it was a conversation between me and my friend that the Holy Spirit used to just inspire. And out of that conversation became this whole, slacker movement, and with the sloth as our mascot. And it was really amazing to see the fruit that was born out of just a conversation between two good friends.
Wow. And I think that what we had been talking about is her and I both were at the time were reading autobiographies of saints.
Okay.
And we were being very passionate about sharing these various facts that we had learned. And I said, I really just wish that there was like something that I could read that was like beyond the factual, because her and I are very drawn by story. And I said, I'd like to read something really powerful, like hey, did you know? And then just hit me with something for like 2 or 3 minutes. And that's where we came up with like the Cliff Note version. Like, I wish instead of me having to read all these books, I just had these really awesome stories that would feed me. And so that's what the podcast was
for Catholics.
Right. And the podcast was like, they were like these, like, anywhere between 2 and like 5 minute podcasts. And so it was really perfect for what we would consider slackers. Because you could technically, we did it, they were daily through Lent, so 40 days, but you could listen to 3 or 4 at one time
because they were short.
Because they were short, and they were really inspirational. And we had, we're an all women's ministry, but we had several men that got on there and shared their favorite saints,
priests, and we had a big blend. And the part that really came out of it was we were like, okay, so if this is a ministry that was really inspired by like the example of Mother Teresa, who said, we can't all do great things, right? But we can do small things with great love. And of Saint Therese, who, died at 25, but lived this interior life that really looked to do her little way, to do little things again with great love. Then what can we do for kind of a people right now that has been just really worn down through 2020?
Yes.
And we're kind of, as we were entering the year, our thing was like, we cannot take one more friggin' thing. Like, we just cannot. And so, of course, it didn't stop during Lent. We had to take a lot more friggin' things, but it was like, we can do this little by little.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could just say, give us 2 to 3 minutes and we'll come up with, we did this whole wannabe saints, which would be like, Saint Impatience, the patron saint of I'm tired of this crap. And, we did shirts for all of those and everything. But it was like, let's bring a little bit of humor and joy into this. Let's just give everybody just a little thing to do every day so that you just feel, like, oh man, that just kind of comforted my heart. Like that was something that I could accomplish. It didn't ask too much of me, but it fed me and nurtured me just like a good friend would. And realizing that the saints are really just our friends in heaven, and stuff. And so we just wanted people to have a new friend, for the 40 days. So it was good.
Well, I have not 2 new friends because Lisa's not new, but after this conversation, I have another new friend. So I'm excited about that. I love both of your hearts. It's really a pleasure to meet you and chat with you about friendship. But as we close out today, A couple of things. What are you looking for? Do you need help with anything? Are you looking for contributors? Are you looking for other people to get involved in your ministry? Because you've got a platform here and you never know who's listening.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I think that we're going to take our retreat and kind of take the time to gel, but I would love to hear from people that would be interested. I think there are some areas editorially and story-wise that we could use some assistance. So if somebody's looking, they have a love for the written word, they have a love for media, they have a heart for ministry, and really it's a heart that's disposed to healing. You have to be willing to, the way that we talk about it is that, this is a messy area for people, right? We're coming into woundedness. We're coming into areas of the heart that, need some care and attention. Yeah. But you have to know kind of how to just be with people, sit with people and that kind of thing. So you have to have our heart, that really seeks healing and that really wants to be a part of that. So you can reach out through littlewithgreatlove.com and there's a contact form, or we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can reach out through any of those platforms. And really, I would say other than that, we want to journey with people that need healing. So our hearts are really disposed to, if there's something, like Tammi wrote this wellness post, just talking about, do you want to be well? And kind of this area of coming into like, I know in my mind that I need to, have these attitudes and dispositions towards food and exercise. And then there's what actually happens. Right. And somebody reached out to the website and she just said, you told my story. And that she was part of a Catholic in recovery group and was really trying to find a sponsor and figure out how to shed, this extra weight, but really kind of change that mindset. Mm-hmm. And she resonated, or, Tammy's story resonated with her. Mm-hmm. So we want to find people that say, I'm seeking, prayer in the journey, or I'm seeking some kind of accompaniment, people to walk with me through the mess. So reach out to us, connect with us.
I would say too, if you're listening to this and you are kind of drawn into Lisa and my relationship and just the way that we interact with each other, these are sort of very similar to the posts that we write. We write in a way that we draw people into various things. We talk about anxiety. We talk about marriages. We talk about sisterhood.
Real life stuff.
It's very real life. And it's very, I feel like, I read a lot of my sister's posts and I feel like sometimes you feel like you're having tea with a friend. Yeah. So, my suggestion would be, pull up the website, take a look at some of the different posts that are written, because every one of us has a friend that we can click share.
Yeah.
And send something to, because we're like, this is exactly what you went through, or this is what you're going through, or this sounds like your sister, or whatever it may be. When we have people that we know that are hurting and our question is, how can we help you? Sometimes it's just sharing other wisdom for other women who've been there, kind of done that.
Yeah.
So I would encourage that, just to kind of journey with us and where we've been.
So leave us on this journey after the podcast. Leave us with a truth about thriving in friendship that you want the listeners to remember and know.
I think when you're thriving in friendship, you have to look towards the heart of the other and think about, okay, I always talk about this in ministry, and I think it applies very much so in relationship, because ministry involves relationship. Mm-hmm. You can't really do good ministry unless you're in relationship with people. And so in good relationship, whether it's with God or with a dear friend, like it is these many years with Tammi, is that I look to the heart of her. It's not just about what I can get. I need to be unburdened. I'm overwhelmed in my life. My anxiety is through the roof right now. How can I get her to help me? But I also look to her to say, what does her heart need? Mm-hmm. How can I love her? How can I serve her? How can I be a good friend to her? Yeah. I think if you approach friendship with that concept of looking to the heart and then seeing, allowing that person. But I think a great gift is to let them be themselves. Yeah. If you just that's what she was speaking to in the very beginning. is the more that you can allow someone to authentically be themselves, the more that they will open their heart to you, and the more that their heart will want to, serve your heart, know your heart, and be that good friend, because you've allowed them just to be the fullest expression of themselves and to feel loved in that way.
You stole half my answer, so thanks for that, Lisa.
Well,
Finishing each other's
we're up
sentences
one
or
heart.
starting each other's sentences.
You know what? Here's what I would say too. I would say make a commitment to that person. In your friendships, I think what happens is sometimes we have these periods where time goes by and we haven't really checked in, and then we feel like too much time has gone by and there's too much to share. Lisa said, her and I talk every Tuesday, and we have this, commitment to we have a commitment to an hour. Yeah. So she was talking about her whole, she likes to get all these things done. So her and I were talking, and I was like, so should we have an agenda so I stay on task so we get all your stuff done? And then we had to have a really good discussion where I was like, listen, I don't want to lose the Lisa and Tammy of this because we have business to do. Right. So now what we do is we just leave voice messages all the time. We'll go on WhatsApp and we'll just I might have a 6-minute message from Lisa who's just you will not believe what happened. And then, when I get a second, I'm I will send her a message, and I'm half the message I'm just laughing in response to what she said. But I bullet point everything. Okay, when you said this, I thought that this was so funny about this, but we stay connected. Yeah. And I think that's really important. It's on purpose. And I think it's also, we also kind of just sometimes send messages. We're like, hey, I was in prayer today and I got the scripture verse and it was spot on our conversation. And I feel like you should take it down. Or Lisa will be like, hey, I was just thinking about you today. And I don't know what's going on, but I'm here if you need to chat, sister. I love you. So I think in this world where everyone's so busy, I think when you carve out time for your friends, and it's a weekly time or a monthly time where you make that commitment, then that's where the flowering of the friendship happens. It's because someone's saying, I choose you. Yeah, I choose you at this time. I choose you every week at this time because I want this
prioritize you. Yeah.
And I feel that. Yeah, especially because, she's got a house full, and stuff. And so, for me, I've got this office. I close my door. There's not children. I don't have pets. It's it's quiet. It's a lot, she's having to orchestrate rides for multiple people and, and everywhere she goes, they all follow because they love her, and they want to be with her. And so there'll be these moments where we're on FaceTime and then it'll just go on mute and you'll see the you know what I mean? Because she has let everybody know this is Miss Lisa time. Do not disturb me. And what I love about that is that she protects that. Yeah. It makes me feel chosen by her. It makes me feel important to her and a priority to her. And I think that's an important thing to feel from your friend, is that you really care. What matters to me matters to you. You have carved out time, you're making that quality time with me. I feel loved and I feel chosen.
But in the same token, I think that there's been times when, Lisa will message me and she'll be like, I have family in town. This is just not going to happen. I want to be there, but I'm not going to be there mentally. Right. I'm just doing too much, or when she sent me a text message and she was like, listen, I know you're hanging on by a thread over there with COVID. I'm assuming we're not talking today, but girl, I got you. Don't think about anything ministry wise, but just focus on what you're going to do. And I think that we think the best of each other. There's been times when her and I are going to be having a meeting and I'm like, Lisa, listen, I'm going to make this happen, but I'm going to be really honest with you. You're going to be FaceTimed in a cup holder while I drive my daughter to work. Right. Or, if I go mute, it's because my dog is being psychotic and I don't want you to hear that. But if my eyes bat a lot, it's because I hear it, but I'm protecting you from it. It just goes back to that whole, just being honest. I've never left a conversation with Lisa where I've been like, what was that about? Or I've never left a conversation where I didn't
or I wish I had said whatever. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's just always, it's hard. Actually, I feel like it's harder for us to leave the conversation.
Yeah, we have had 3 hours before
Yeah.
we were just like, okay, and we could keep going. You know,
We're like, I really should.
I was like, I think people need to eat at this point.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
stuff.
Make sure my family's alive.
Yeah, exactly. Out there. Yeah.
That's a dynamic duo right there. I love how I was on the verge of tears a couple of times in that. And that simply is a reflection of the authenticity of the relationship between Tammi and Lisa and that spiritual bond. I'd love for you to share this episode with a friend. Please follow Tammi and Lisa. Most importantly, follow the incredible work that they're doing at Little with Great Love. All of the links to follow them and connect and get involved if you'd like to in this ministry through story to women are in the show notes. Also, remember, you can join my Thriving Thoughts texting community. Try it free for 14 days. All you need to do is text the word THRIVE to 540-369-2139. Until Friday, friends, with another monologue episode from me all about friendship. Remember, please speak truth over the lies and a promise you will thrive. Yes, you will, in any and every circumstance.